It's been over a year since I've done my last video about those sweet film simulation recipes, and since then I've been locked away in the lab day and night trying out all sorts of wacky film simulations, and these are the best 6.5 recipes with a mix of some I've been able to find online and some that I cooked up myself. Grab yourself a blanket, a nice warm cup of WD-40 and get comfy, because this might be a longer one. Of course I can't test film simulations at home because I will literally take any excuse to go on a photo trip, so we headed to the land that once owned 2/3 of the world and is now really good at to-go food. My accomplice for this video is Yannick once again. You might know him from some of my past videos. He isn't a photographer, but he's really good at walking into my shots, so I thought I'll bring him along just to, set myself a challenge. The first day here we made our way to Hyde Park because our hotel was pretty close and we wanted to make this country proud by getting a heavy sunburn on the first day. For the first recipe, I wanted to go with something that makes people ask, where do you summer? This one is called California Summer and is by Richie from Fuji X Weekly. Okay, the way we're going to do this is I'm going to show you the photos first and then I'm going to show you the settings for the recipe after, because it makes much more sense when you can first decide, do I want to spend one of my holy 7 spell slots on this recipe before I show you the settings? Otherwise you'll have to, skip back and forth the whole time. Yeah. It's been about 10 years since I was in London the last time, and in that time I kind of forgot how beautiful it is, especially in summer. The California Summer recipe is really nice for these types of shots. Super warm tones, lush greens, and beautiful blue skies. Also, I really like the way it handles the color red on these photos I took of cars, and on this photo I took through the window of some restaurant near our hotel. Of course, for this trip and all of the shots you see in this video, I used my Fuji X100VI. Earlier this year, I actually set myself a challenge and only used 35mm lenses for my photography for several months. I might have to make a dedicated video about that experience at some point. When the conditions are right, California Summer works really well, but I had to make one adjustment to it because the white balance shift in the recipe is -6 blue, which was a bit too heavy for me, so I toned it down to -3. The thing is, California Summer gives you a very strong look. Basically, if you go outside and you instantly sweat through your t-shirt in less than 4.5 seconds, then you know this recipe is gonna give you some bangers. But I decided to search the Fuji X Weekly website for another recipe that gives me warm tones but is a bit more muted. And that led me to the 1970s summer recipe. We made our way to the Kensington Gardens that, much to my surprise, is not the place they grow Kensington trackball mice. The 1970s summer recipe is much more muted than the previous one and has less saturation, but gives you some beautiful greens and a very nostalgic feel. Okay, here are the settings. Feel free to pause the video and take a screenshot or, I don't know, print it if it makes you happy. At this point we headed off to meet up with a friend. Unfortunately the sun disappeared and was replaced with a very grey layer of clouds that I had hoped to have left at home. The problem with these warm film simulation recipes is that they often use a fixed white balance, and as soon as it isn't sunny anymore, everything just looks very muddy. That's why I've been looking for a good recipe that uses auto white balance for a while. I've actually been working on my own recipe that uses auto white balance that I'll show you later on, but first I need to show you a different one because it just works wonders. This one is called Classic Cuban Negative and is by Osan Bilgi, no idea if I'm pronouncing that right, but this one is so good. Definitely one of the best film simulation recipes that use auto white balance, and I was honestly blown away by how good it is. Shout out to a friend of mine, Lorenz. I only ended up finding this recipe through him. Our friend, who is a London native and not an aggressively obvious tourist like Yannick and I, took us to Camden, which was very chaotic very suddenly. These were not the chill lo-fi beats to shoot film to my brain was expecting. I'm gonna be honest, it was so chaotic here, and between taking photos and trying to decide if I want to spend 12 British Empire doubloons on a hot dog, I only filmed like 2 clips here, but the classic Cuban recipe definitely came through. After surviving Camden, we made our way to the other side of the city for the actual reason we were in London, to watch teenagers play a car soccer video game and be better at it than I will ever be at anything in my life. After the team we liked had won against the team we didn't like, we went back to the hotel. The next morning we made our way to the part of London where they suddenly decided, you know what, we should have some skyscrapers here. I was still rocking the classic Cuban negative recipe and it worked really well here.
I know that you're trying to fix me, but I don't want to be like you. If you want to take it back to the 50s, maybe I'm not the guy for you. You're dying not to work until you die, you know that's true. Have you thought it through? Cause you love to tell me what to do. Say no, not like you, I don't think that you get it. You should go and get out, I'll make you regret it. Someone like you should worry about. Maybe your two's upside down, and I'm not like you, I don't think that you get it. I don't wanna.
The first thing we did, of course, was look for the phallic-shaped building. Unfortunately, to keep this video family-friendly, I need to blur any shot where you can see the whole thing. But honestly, these photos turned out super nice. The classic Cuban recipe in some situations comes really close to looking like actual film. I feel like on some shots it has a similar vibe to Kodak Gold scanned on an Ritsu scanner.
Say no, I'm not like you, I don't think that you get it. You should go and get out, I'll make you regret it. Someone like you should worry about. Maybe it's you who's upside down, and I'm not like you, I don't think that you get it. Ooh.
We came across this super dystopian looking building right next to a bunch of really modern office buildings. I have no idea what it is or why it's there, but it looks sick. After that we made our way to Leadenhall Market. This was such a good location and definitely where the classic Cuban negative recipe came into its own.
I know that you're trying to fix me, but I don't want to be like you. Keep your stupid job, pretend that you're the person you wanted to be. And you're dying not to work until you die. And you're dying not to work until you die. You're dying not to work until you die. You're dying inside. Say no, I'm not like you, I don't think that you get it. You should go and get out, I'll make you regret it. Someone like you should worry about. Maybe it's you who's upside down. I'm not like you, I don't think that you get it.
The colors here were so cool and this recipe just really amplified them in the perfect way. As with all touristy spots, it was very crowded and almost impossible to single out a subject within your frame. Usually my favorite street photography technique is to find a composition and just wait for a subject to walk into frame, but Yannick didn't share the same fascination for this waiting game, so we got some lunch. I didn't film lunch, I only have this clip where Yannick has this forlorn look on his face, and the only reason I'm including this clip into the video is so I could use the word forlorn.
Don't forget
I'm a simple photographer. I see a building that's shaped like a giant air purifier and I take a photo. You have to hand it to the people here in the financial district. They really know how to make a building that get the common folk talking. I really love the dark and punchy reds this recipe produces. I'm really happy with this image, and this umbrella was definitely a paid actor. Honestly, photography doesn't always have to be this complicated thing. Sometimes you just gotta point your camera at something colorful. The classic Cuban negative recipe works so well in so many situations because it uses auto white balance, and some of these shots really look a lot like film. And I think due to the versatility, this recipe has to be the new default on my X100VI. Of course, here are the settings. One thing I might change is turn the sharpness down from 0 to -2 or even -3 to make it a bit softer, but that's just personal preference. I don't know what I'm saying, like this whole video isn't just personal preference. This next recipe is one of my own. I've dubbed it Street Nostalgia. This also uses auto white balance, and compared to the classic Cuban negative recipe, it just has a bit more punch and more contrast for street photography. We made our way to the tower bridge. I don't know why they felt the need to build a bridge that's also 2 towers. Seems a bit like they just wanted to flex, but I'm glad they painted these parts blue because it makes for some pretty pictures. After taking 124 pictures of Tower Bridge from all sides, I felt exhausted. At this point we had also already walked like 100 miles and it was super hot, so we needed something to lift our spirits. After staring at this warship for a while, our testosterone levels spiked and we felt re-energized to continue walking.
How many years, how many times, how many fears, how many rhymes, how many things that we had to go through. Now we're standing here to the line. Everything works out here in the end. Everything falls into place in time. Live for the mix and blend, no 8s or 9s and everything's 10. Like what never been hard, easy, yeah, you know we got scars. Following signs and following stars, following ceiling, following hearts. You can do it when you want to, yeah, no rush. Life is amazing, life is enough. You know where you stand when you know your stuff. You know how it goes when you know your...
The Street Nostalgia recipe uses classic chrome, which has always been my favorite film simulation. It gives you some nice desaturated blues, and the added contrast just gives it this super nice punchy look. But at this point I wasn't really producing any images that I consider all that good. We were also kind of just walking through rush hour traffic in a very businessy area, as all the people who actually make money instead of just spending everything on camera gear went home.
Live this stuff, I don't flex. Don't need to say you're the best. I was born to do this, maybe yes. Find your thing and do your best. Say more to me, don't say less. Let it out, yeah, be my guest. Cause I know how it gets. Let's meet up, make a plan. I'm glad that you understand. And we're sharing things in the way we can. I say to myself all the time, life is mad, do it properly, Jan. Be there for everyone, all you can. It's real, you know that you got me, man.
We were already exhausted from walking 200 miles that day, so that's when we decided to walk even more, back to the more touristy areas, because there you don't really have to think all that much, just point your camera at the pretty things. Maybe that would get me out of the photographic slump I was experiencing at this point. After a while we made it to Big Ben just in time for sunset, and boy did he deliver. Sunset gave us some super nice colors, and what I really love about this street nostalgia recipe is that when you have any warmth in your image, it looks a lot like scanned Kodak film. Not like a super high quality scan, but like your run-of-the-mill cheaper scan. Here are the settings if you want to try it yourself. Depending on the conditions, the contrast might be a bit too much, so for a bit of a softer look, I would take the highlights to -1 and the shadows to +1 or maybe even down to 0. At this point we were so tired, we walked at least 300 miles that day and just fell asleep then and there with Big Ben watching over us. The next morning we woke up each having had our wisdom teeth stolen while we were sleeping, which made us realize apparently Big Ben hadn't watched over us, but we didn't have time to confront him because we had to see Buckingham Palace and we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. Apparently that day the Japanese emperor was visiting the royal family and there was police and horses absolutely everywhere. And then we suddenly heard a really loud explosion and my first thought was, holy shit, I'm about to be unalived by some bad guys even though I don't belong to either of these nations. Then, a couple of seconds later, we realized that apparently they were just doing some ceremonial cannon firing stuff. After my visceral flight response had cooled off, I thought, what better time to try out another film simulation recipe. This one is called Ultramax Electro and is by Ross and his JPEGs. I wanted to try this because it also gets you a really contrasty look I quite like, and I feel like the look is pretty close to Ultramax. But was this the best look to take a photo of the king and Japanese emperor? I don't know, but it also doesn't matter because the photo is blurry anyways. I was playing around with the slow shutter speed before and forgot to change it back because, I don't know, I'm just a shit photographer. After that terrible disappointment, I was eager to take some good photos to make up for the dent my confidence had taken, so we went on our way to Soho. Soho and Chinatown were great spots for the Ultramax Electro recipe, but we didn't stay here for long because we knew we wanted to come back here at night. After learning about what the spice of life is, which just ended up being beans for breakfast, we decided to make our way to the British Museum. Ultramax Electro is definitely a really good recipe if you like a contrasty look that doesn't have any extreme color shifts. Here are the settings, and big shout out to Ross and his JPEGs for this recipe. When shooting with it, I would definitely make sure you aren't underexposing, otherwise you might lose a lot to the shadows. Setting the exposure compensation to +1/3 or sometimes even 2/3 definitely gave me better results.
Das Ding ist aber schön. Junge, wie viele Autos fahren hier denn lang, Mann?
The museum had some very interesting architecture. I'm a big fan of black and white for photographing architecture, and that brings me to the next recipe. This is the cinematic black and white recipe by me. I'm a huge fan of shooting black and white recipes on Fuji cameras because the fact that your preview is also black and white just makes me think about my compositions differently. The British Museum had some very cool old stuff. It made me wonder if in 100 years or so a camera like the Fuji X100VI I was using would also end up in a museum, but then I realized it will probably still be on back order until then.
Start it up.
This recipe is great for architecture, but it's also really good for street photography. I actually used it for a couple of shots the previous days as well, and I'm really happy with how some of these turned out. This recipe uses the Acros plus red filter film simulation, which I love because it makes a blue sky look more interesting than it usually would in black and white. As with the Ultramax Electro recipe, you need to make sure your exposure is good. If you underexpose, this recipe can look a bit crappy. Unfortunately, we didn't have all that much time in the museum because they closed pretty early. So I went back to the Ultramax Electro recipe because I was really interested in how it handles golden hour. We made our way back towards Soho, which, if you're curious, stands for "Sorry honey, I spent all of our savings on cameras." Once the sun had set, we hit the streets of Soho for some sleepy time street photography. Honestly, I haven't really found any recipes that I really like for night photography. On this night I tried the CineStill 800T recipe by Fuji X Weekly because I heard some good things about it online. The first thing I noticed was that it's just way too soft for my liking. So I increased the sharpness from -3 to -1 and also increased the clarity from -5 to -2. But I still wasn't really that happy with the results, to be honest. I was looking for a more pronounced look with these images. So what I did was import the JPEGs into Lightroom and edit them using my disposable Vibes Lightroom preset set to about 80%. And I also used my Halationify tool. It's a website I built that you can use to add halations to your digital images, and it's completely free. This works super well for night images and just really sells the film look. If you're interested in checking it out, I'm gonna leave a link down in the description below.
Nowadays the pain follow me, deal with trauma privately. I don't wanna be a burden, I handle things defiantly. Spent a decade searching for a higher power guiding me. Figured out that faith is not up there, that it's inside of me. Act with execution, what's a plan with zero action? Faced with bad habits, knowing it's a magnet to my imbalance. I'm somewhere between confidence and arrogance. The middle ground is treacherous, I work on getting out of it. Pops is looking down, I feel him every time the sun shines. Back to being unsigned, I only got my bloodline. With me going forward, smoking cookie till we heard you taking shots, we pulled up on them, they was gunshot. 2 p.m. in Rome, we at the chapel eating sun-dried tomatoes and a plum wine. Life been like a movie, I don't know how long the run time. Hope it's an extended cut, but when I died, I load my consciousness onto a thumb drive. And upload it to the masses when I pass. All my sets is holographic, life's as real as you imagine. My Jewish girl was tight, cause I ain't linked.
After a while of walking around, I found this super cool spot that had big glowing signs in the window, so I just started Call of Duty style camping here.
We getting active, stacking cash and dodging taxes. My father was a Catholic, never taught me how to practice, but with music I'm a Baptist. Christian all these tracks I bless these raps with. Standing in the middle of the marsh, both sides caving on the drive. Praying to my pops and the guys. God, please help me out. Can you spare me for once? Spare me for once. Hey, yeah. Can you spare me for once? Spare me for once. Hey, I ain't asking for much. No.
We watch history. We make history.
Hey, you want me to check your picture?
No.
Standing in the middle of the marsh, both sides caving on the drive. Praying to my pops and the guys. God, please help me out. Can you spare me
I've said it before, editing your Fujifilm JPEGs works really well. For some reason they just hold up a lot better than you would expect when editing JPEGs. If you're interested in getting this look on your own images, I'm going to leave a link with a heavy discount for the Disposable Vibes preset pack in the description. This video doesn't have a sponsor, and picking up one of my preset packs is by far the best way to support me so I can keep this channel running in the future. I'm really happy with these nighttime images, but I just googled and apparently Soho is named that way because it's an old hunting cry. And on that terrible disappointment, it is time to end. Thank you so much for watching and have a good night.
Standing